today. According to the Cascade Policy Institute, a free market think tank, measures 66 and 67 could cost Oregon up to 70,000 jobs. Opponents of the measure say we shouldn't be increasing taxes during a recession, and the government hasn't tightened its belt enough. Proponents say the tax is only on the wealthiest Oregonians and corporations, and that schools and health care services will have to be cut if the tax increases don't pass. So, who wants to explain? I'm going to go to Mike. Let's just talk about what the basics of these two measures are so that we understand what we're talking about.
Well, they're talking about pulling approximately $750 million additional dollars in taxes out of the Oregon economy, out of the private sector of the Oregon economy. How could anybody think that that's going to have a good impact on our economy to pull another $750 million out of the private sector as we're trying to recover from a recession? Their budget this year is an increase of 9% over the last biennium. They haven't had cuts. The K-12 budget is cut, ironically, but overall the budget's increasing by 9%. Without these two tax measures, it still increases by 7%. So I haven't been convinced in any way that we need these additional taxes.
Well, I would like to say that I hope people would read their voters' pamphlet very carefully, because there's a lot of really good information in there, besides obviously the arguments in favor and the arguments in opposition, just the basic language of what it's supposed to do and how it's supposed to do it. One of the things that I looked at that I remember quite well from when Enron was here, and Enron was the utility that came in, bought PGE, sucked a lot of money out of the Oregon economy, not to mention taxes that would have been paid to Oregon, but they used it as an offset for the scam that was going on in Texas. And you'll find that measure number 67 deals with the Oregon minimum corporate tax. Right now in Oregon, a corporation like PGE or PP&L or into anybody, they can pay the minimum, which is $10. Now, I don't know how people feel about that, but in terms of the burden that those industries are carrying with a $10 tax against the school systems that train and teach people to read and write so that they can be employed by PGE or Intel or whoever, they're getting a lot of value for the very little money they put into the system. So from my point of view, equity is a good thing, where everybody pays what they can in terms of we're using this infrastructure, we're using water, we're using electricity, we're using the schools. Pay your fair share.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. I said earlier that I think there's an ad right now going out there that's called from Vote Yes for Oregon, and it's a very misleading ad. They've got mansions and people making $250,000 or more, need to start paying their fair share. And I think it's a populist movement. It's something that is being created from the ground level and making this 3% of people that don't, however, live in these huge mansions. Most of them. I mean, you're talking about the top 5% of Oregonians, 0.5%, not the top 3% of Oregonians. And I believe they already pay their fair share. If you start making them pay more, you're going to have corporations having to cut jobs so that they're, have to get a chance to pay that income, including the people, the private people,
Except the corporations will write off their state income taxes off what they owe the federal government, and that's part of it. The other thing is important to realize that the law on the books has been there since 1931, and it hasn't changed. It hasn't kept pace with the times. In 1931, corporations weren't making $250 million a year or $1 billion a year like some of the companies that are in Oregon today. So if all we ever did was bring it up to realistic dollar value in today's dollars from what it was in 1931, you might have a little better understanding of maybe the law needs to be updated a little bit.
That's one tiny part of this measure. Richard and I have had this conversation for years now on this program. Only the most unprofitable companies would pay $10. Okay, this is basically a filing fee is what this minimum tax is. C corporations in Oregon pay 6% on their profits in this state. And all the S corps, all the small business owners, 71% of those so-called rich people in 66 are small business owners, pay 9%. They pay the top rate on the profits. So this idea that businesses and business people are not contributing to tax base is ridiculous. Now, there's a gross receipts tax in here. It's the first time Oregon's ever had anything like that. It's the most. It would be the most draconian one in the country. People need to understand this is a form of sales tax. For all of you who voted 9 times against the sales tax, this is a backdoor creation of a sales tax in the state of Oregon. The only people who want this are the public employee unions, and they have put millions of dollars into it. Millions of dollars, half of which or more has come from outside the state. Now, these are the same folks who told us in the last election that outside money flooding in is corrupting Oregon politics. But when it's their outside money coming in, I guess it's okay. I mean, the things about this measure are so look at the subterfuge that has occurred throughout the entire year on this measure. They tried during the session to turn a yes vote into a no and a no vote into a yes to confuse voters. Then the governor delayed signing the bill so that the citizens of this state would have less time to collect the signatures. Then they allowed a committee to write the ballot statement, which is slanted in favor of the yes side. And they've gone into the voters' pamphlet statement and put yes statements into the no side. Does this sound like people who really want to have an honest dialogue with the people of Oregon about what's best for this state? No. It's a bunch of thugs trying to push the people and the taxpayers of this state around, and they ought to reject it soundly this month.
And here's another point. When they talk about the reasons for needing this to be done, they talk always about public safety, health officials, and teachers being lost. Well, if the state puts their budget together and they decide that public safety, teachers, and health officials are the ones they want to put at risk, say, if you don't vote for this measure, we're going to kill the things you really care about, that's dishonest. They need to take care of the basic services within the budget, and then if they actually honestly feel that they need more money for a specific purpose, they ought to be honest about that and ask the voters to vote for that purpose.
Look, the budget increased 16% in the last biennium, and this time it's up 9%. I'm telling all of you within earshot, you will never be able to send enough money to the state government. They will always believe that they need more. I've just spent the last 6 months down there as a state rep, and there is just no end to the things they want to spend money on. Whether it's 16% or 9%, they just want more.
Matt, do you know, I mean, is this true? Do they have $2.3 billion in excess funds right now, and they're still asking for more?
Well, the governor just put out the fiscal, he has a requirement on an annual basis to put out a report on ending fund balances, and they have once again admitted that they have nearly over $4 billion in ending fund balances, of which a large percentage, I think like 70% of it, is available and fungible if the legislature would like to capture it. Now, we've been told for a year this is magic money, but the governor keeps putting out a report claiming this money exists. There is money. We haven't even gotten to a discussion about the priorities of the budgeting process and where the money is being spent instead of cutting kids.
Right.